I hope everyone's ready for a very rock and roll summer. Hello everyone, Soberoni of G&A Reviews here, and in today's Servant Spotlight, we'll be covering the servant that proves that not even Nasu is above JoJo memes, Nobunaga Berserker. We'll be examining her stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize her effectively, and an overall grade, comparing her to how she stacks up to the other 4-star servants. Now, onto Nobunaga's stats. Nobu has a max HP of 10,023 and a max attack of 10,146, which becomes 11,160 thanks to her Berserker class modifier. Nobu's HP is abysmal, even by Berserker standards, as she has the second lowest HP stat among all 4-star Berserkers, while her attack is just about average. When comparing her to the rest of the 4-star servants, however, Nobunaga's HP isn't much better. It ranks 3rd lowest among all 4 stars, but thankfully her attack is far above average. Nobunaga has the typical glass cannon stat spread of a Berserker. Great offense at the cost of extremely low HP. Taking a look at her skills, her first skill is Fool's Killing Method rank A. It applies evade to herself for 1 turn, and increases her Buster Card effectiveness for 3 turns between 10 and 20% depending on level. Her second skill is Atsumori Beat rank B. It generates between 5 to 10 crit stars per turn for 5 turns. It also rejuvenates the party's HP between 300 and 500 HP per turn for 5 turns, and increases the NP gauge of all allies per turn by 3%. All depending on level. And finally, her last skill is Beach's Demon King of the 6th Heaven, rank A-. It increases her critical star gather rate for 1 turn between 1000 and 3000%. It also applies short hit for 1 turn, and increases her attack when fire is on the field for 3 turns between 10 and 20%, all depending on level. As for her passives, Nobu Berserker only has 1, and that is Madness Enhancement rank C, which increases her Buster Card effectiveness by 6%. Moving on to her deck in Noble Phantasm, Nobu Berserker has a Buster deck with Quick Arts Buster 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 and a Buster Noble Phantasm. Her Noble Phantasm is Nobunaga the Rock and Roll. It deals significant damage to a single enemy with between a 600% and 1000% damage modifier depending on level. It also grants special attack against the Vine, granting between 150% and 200% extra bonus damage depending on overcharge. Taking a closer look at her cards, we see that her quick card hits 3 times, her arts hits twice, her buster card hits 6 times, and her extra attack hits 5 times. She has an NP gain rate of 0.93% and a star rate of 5%. Despite being a Berserker with a triple Buster deck, Nobu has good NP gain thanks to the high hit counts on her cards and respectable star generating in Brave Chains. There's no debating that Summer Nobu is hot. That much is obvious just by looking at her, but what may not be so obvious is just how exactly she's designed from a gameplay perspective. Because for a Berserker, Nobu is awfully complex. For one thing, similar to Skahawk, Nobu's Buster cards are incredibly strong due to their high hit counts. They hit so many times they can even generate a good amount of NP and stars when leading your chain with arts or quick cards. So much so that Nobu's NP gain is fairly strong for a Berserker. On top of that, her skill set is atypical of the usual Berserker. Her first skill, Fool's Killing Method, doubles as both her primary damage buff and best means of survival by giving her both a small buster buff and evade. This can provide good flexibility, allowing Nobu to survive an enemy NP and then instantly retaliate. And because the Buster buff lasts 3 turns, it isn't as punishing as something like Jack's evade skill. But you still need to time it wisely as to not waste the evade. Nobu's second skill, Atsumori Beat, is actually a pure support skill and it may look familiar. This is a weaker version of Avalon, Merlin's Noble Phantasm, in skill form. It provides the team with NP gain, stars, and healing for a full 5 turns. This skill has incredible utility and allows Nobu to be self-sufficient while also providing good support for the team. And it especially works well in conjunction with other support servants. Finally, Beach Demon King of the 6th Heaven gives Nobu Short Hit, a powerful Star Absorb, and a conditional attack buff. The attack buff will rarely trigger, so it's not worth considering. The main draw of this skill is the extremely strong Star Absorb with very low cooldown. This gives Nobu a good niche in crit teams. And because her own second skill generates a good amount of stars, she isn't as dependent on star generators for setup. Skill priority for Nobu should be Atsumori Blessing first. The skill is just too strong to pass up, followed by Fool's Killing Method for a bit of extra damage and durability, and then finally Beach Demon King last. However, if you're specifically building a crit team around Nobu, I do suggest leveling Beach Demon King before Fool's Killing Method for the lower cooldown to make better use of your crit burst damage. Nobu's NP is a single target buster nuke that deals bonus damage against divine enemies. There isn't much nuance to this Noble Phantasm, contrary to the rest of Nobu's kit, but it is effective, especially when considering how good Nobu's NP gain is and her sure hit. This NP will absolutely melt divine enemies of any class, so Nobu is a fantastic anti-divine servant to bring to nearly any battle. As you may have noticed, Nobu may not play like a typical Berserker, but she does have a lot of synergy in her kit, and that makes her highly versatile and self-sufficient. Thanks to Atsumori Blessing and her low cooldown Star Absorb, Nobu can set herself up for devastating crit combos and high burst damage turns. Her good NP gain also makes it much easier to support her with art servants, which further enables her to quickly unleash her Noble Phantasm, sometimes even multiple times in a battle. But for every step forward in Nobu's kit, there seems to be a step back as well. One major flaw of her unique skill set is that each of her skills has a downside. Her evade and only damage buff being tied to the same skill puts her in a bad spot where you often need to sacrifice damage for survival. Likewise, her only other damage buff is almost never relevant because the field effect is exceedingly rare. Nobu also has a cooldown issue with an 8-turn cooldown on Atsumori Blessing and a 6-turn cooldown on her evade. Despite being a crit Berserker, she also lacks any crit damage buffs in her kit. All of these weak points add up, but what really hurts Nobu the most is simply her lack of damage. She may have high attack for a 4-star, but she's still weak compared to the other 4-star Berserkers, who simply outclass her damage immensely. When not attacking a Divine Servant, Nobu has the lowest NP damage of all the 4-star single target Berserkers, and she has no reliable damage buff at all because one of her damage buffs is tied to her only survival skill, and the other is tied to a condition that almost never occurs. What Nobu needs to shine is a strong and dedicated support core. And there are two types of supports that Nobu needs more than anything else: powerful damage buffs to maximize her NP strength, and crit support. Among the best damage buffers for Nobu are Liz, Leonidas, and unsurprisingly, Nightingale. Never underestimate Liz's potential as a support for female servants. Between her sadistic charisma and torture techniques, Nobu gains a 60% damage buff on a very low cooldown. This more than makes up for her lack of reliable self buffs. Leonidas is another great choice. He provides a weaker buff than Liz, but it still has good uptime, and in addition he provides excellent defensive utility with his taunts to help protect Nobu. And finally, Nightingale just straight up has one of the best buster buffs in the game, making her an excellent choice for trying to do as much damage as possible in a single turn or two. Nobu also appreciates a good crit support. For that, I recommend Edison, Brynhilda, and Caesar. Edison has good synergy with Nobu thanks to his mass production working very well alongside her own Atsumori Beat, for a full 20 stars per turn for 5 turns. He can also make her bulkier and decrease her long cooldowns with Wizard of Menlo Park once he gets his strengthening quest. Speaking of which, once Bryn receives her strengthening quest, she becomes one of the best crit supports available, granting Nobu near permanent Star Absorb and bonus crit strength. Caesar is a good free-to-play option since he can generate a good amount of stars, and his crit damage buff is great. Just keep in mind the significant demerit. Nobu's Bondcraft Essence is Tenkafubu. It increases Buster Card effectiveness and crit strength of all allies by 15%, but decreases their defense by 10%. Not a good Bondcraft Essence considering the heavy demerit on the Berserker with already abysmally low HP. Instead, go with a CE that boosts your damage significantly, like Golden Sumo, Limited Zero, Hero Ellie-chan, or Our Conquest is the Ocean of Stars. Sumo is going to let you NP quickly and give you a good steady damage output. Ellie-chan and Limited Zero will maximize your NP damage, and Conquest is good for getting off multiple NPs. Alternatively, if you want to go full crit team, your best options are Joint Recital, Victor from the Moon, and Gem Magecraft. There are a couple of future CEs to be on the lookout for as well. Aerial Drive is one of the best Buster CEs in the game in JP and works phenomenally as a better Golden Sumo. while Shining Skyscraper is an excellent choice in crit teams. Overall, Nobu is an interesting take on the Berserker class, and one that succeeds in many ways. Her Buster cards provide good NP gain and star generating. She's also an excellent anti-divine servant that's well suited for many tough boss battles. Her second skill is excellent and a good source of both self-sustain and team utility, and as a crit Berserker she works very well thanks to her low cooldown star absorb buff and the ability to easily generate stars for herself. But for all those good points, she struggles in equal measure due to the lack of reliable steroids for her attack, an attack buff that rarely triggers, somewhat long cooldowns, and just very low damage output against non-divine enemies when compared to other Berserkers. So with all that in mind, she gets a B from me. Nobu has the tools to be an excellent servant, but unless you have the perfect team comp to support her, she's going to underperform. Still though, she does have a lot going for her, and at the very least, she's a competent Berserker that is worth building a solid team around. And those are my thoughts on Nobu Berserker. And before anyone says it, I know Nobu Avenger exists with her field effect support, but that's a whole other can of worms. In any case, I'm curious to see what you guys think, so let me know in the comments below. If you haven't seen them already, be sure to check out my spotlights for the other summer servants as well, linked on screen and in the description. Also, don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over at our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter. And I'll see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. Soberoni out. Later.